okay, this is really starting to pique my curiosity. So I started reading everything I could get my hands on, ordering books off Amazon, watching YouTube channels, contacting different investigators, Melba Ketchum, Will Jevning. You know, I just was, it consumed me, and it still does, basically. So I just decided that I would start investigating local farms, because I had a lot of friends that had farms at the time, and you know, still have. So I started going around investigating, and it wasn't long before I found tracks, stick structures, hair on barbed wire fences, scat, all kinds of evidence. But back then, I thought I was just looking for some kind of like big hairy ape that lived in the woods. It wasn't long after, maybe a year after I started investigating, that I realized that there's a lot more to these creatures than just some dumb hairy animal that lives in the woods. So, you know, I started the group on Facebook, and I started the YouTube channel, and just from there, it just blossomed into like meeting so many people from all over the world. I mean, not just in the United States, but all over the place. And it's just been a whirlwind of evidence. We have boards, and we set them up so that people can look at them, but eventually I'm going to do a PowerPoint presentation which will make it easier to describe different things. But I guess I'll tell you about one experience that really kind of changed my life, as well as the other men that were out that night. A man approached me one day. I was at a flea market in Red Hook, and I was set up with some tracks and different things. And he approached me, and he had bought a house, had a house built. He was from the city and had this place built and had a pond dredged. And he didn't know very much about the wildlife around or any of that. And he said that one night he stepped out on his deck, and they had left one of the backhoes out in the yard because they were dredging the pond. And he saw this creature standing up, and it had to be, he said, about 8-9 feet tall, standing by this backhoe, and it had glowing eyes, and he had no idea. He thought it was a bear. So that was one thing. Then the men that had dredged the pond had found gigantic footprints around the perimeter of the pond. So, you know, he knew kind of that something was up on his property. So he said, would I come out with the team and investigate? And we call that the habitation site, because there was ongoing activity, like every single night. They would throw rocks at his house. They punched out his lights, like his motion lights in the back of the house. They'd scratch on the screens. They'd move around his furniture on the deck. He decided he was going to start feeding them, and bad idea. That's something nobody should do. So he started making, like, he was trying to make peace with them. So he started making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. He would go buy honey buns and all kinds of like little, you know, they were spending a lot of money too. So every night, like before dark, he would put them out along this rickety fence that he had by a creek. And then the next morning, all the bags would be gone. We'd go in the woods, and we would find some of the like Ziploc bags, and they would be sliced, like almost like somebody took a razor blade and sliced the bags open. So we knew it wasn't raccoons or any, you know, normal animals. And so we did this night investigation there, and I had 2 men from Massachusetts come. And they had a FLIR camera, one of those really expensive night vision cameras. So we had gone out during, when it was still light out. This was December 30th of 2014. So we went out during the day to, give the guys the lay of the land, and then we went in, had something to eat, and then we went out. So the guys were gearing up with their cameras and everything. So I stepped out on the porch to have a cigarette, and as soon as I stepped out on the porch, a tree gets pushed down into the creek. And I'm like, all right, guys, hurry up, they're starting, So we went out and we started walking down towards the feeding area and the creek. And the man with the camera was to the right, and he was panning with this camera, and he says, contact, contact. There were 4 of them to our right. They were flipping so mad that they started breaking trees down, and it's in our book that we wrote, and there's a board with like gigantic live trees were being snapped like pretzels. So we were like, he was filming, so we got it on film, but I can't publicly put it out, but if you come to the shop, I can show you the footage. So that was weird. So then I said, everybody, we better, head back to the house because they're getting really, really angry. So we turned around, the guy with the camera and myself, he got hit with infrasound, which is something that they do. And it's almost like electric shock. And I don't know if that happens in ghost hunting, but they sometimes shut our cameras off and all this weird magnetic stuff happens. So that guy got really sick. He was like, dry heaving, and so I'm trying to get him up to the house. The homeowner and this other guy, Dave, were still facing the creek. All of a sudden, this blue light shot up into the air. Everything went dead silent. So we're like, okay, all of us were like freaked out. The homeowner got hit with infrasound that night as well, but Dave and I didn't get hit. So that was a pretty scary night. So the next night, the homeowner had his girlfriend over for New Year's Eve. They went out to eat. They came home, pulled in, got out of the car, and all around the perimeter of his property was green eye shine. Like, he told me there had to be 30 of them, which I thought he was exaggerating, but now, as I know more and more about these creatures, I don't think he was exaggerating. So they ran in the house, he got his shotgun, and he just, was terrified. The woman, she said she never, after that night, she had to spend the night because she was afraid to leave. She never came back again. She said, I'm never coming to this house again. So that was just one example.
Does he still have the house?
He is selling the house. I just found out it's on the market because he's had so much strange stuff. Yes.
I have a question. Well, actually, I have a theory about